So, believe it or not, we're now into week 6 of the Phillip Schofield scandal. That's how long it's been since everyone's favourite daytime TV presenters were first taken off This Morning sofa for a day under very mysterious circumstances.
Wow.
We now know last week, well, we all knew anyway, but it's been admitted last week that Phillip Schofield had an affair with a younger colleague. Simon, what have you made of the downfall of St. Philip?
Well, again, as always, a lot of factors and strands that if one tries to disentangle them and speak coherently, there is a certain amount of schadenfreude, I think, isn't there, when any sort of overtly popular, slightly oily, I don't know, like mainstream sofa-bound presenter gets their comeuppance, because we all know they're all a bit too good to be true, and they present this kind of shiny and, is that right? Squeezy elbow, and how did that make you feel? And it's all just a bit nauseating, So I try to detach from that and just think, does he deserve the amount of I don't know, kind of like almost Savile-tier horror, and I just don't think he does quite. I think the reality is, I think his own description of it is probably accurate. Unwise, but not illegal.
It's a great coinage, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It could be the name of someone's
absolutely. and until evidence to the contrary emerges, I think we have to conclude that's what it was. But equally, I think it does expose that the culture behind the scenes and behind the cameras in those kind of TV shows is not quite what they present on camera.
Yeah.
And that in itself isn't actually a harmful thing to be reminded of, because it is a little bit like social media and the way we always go on Instagram and see everybody else's show reel and not the blooper reel. And you can think to yourself, oh God, I wish I was a nice person. So it's quite nice to see. I mean, I think, for instance, it's been quite interesting to see just how adept a player Holly Willoughby appears to be. She has actually, a bit like Rishi Sunak. She has
knowing when to throw someone under the bus. That's a very important skill in these things. But it has been striking. First of all, how long it's been bearing on for. But you do feel that in a lot of the reaction, there's just that sense of, I don't know if hypocrisy is the right word, but because of the fact that it's not exclusive to daytime TV, but media in general, even more so than previously, it feels quite moralistic, often wants to present people as incredibly worthy. There was obviously all of the fanfare around Schofield coming out and that being a kind of great moral moment for the nation and so on. And so when you kind of fail to live up to these things, it makes the reaction, of course they're up to that because they're human beings and they work in showbiz and these things always happen. But I think in particular, there was just this sort of sense of, in the context of Piers Morgan getting pushed out because he correctly said that Meghan Markle doesn't always tell the truth. All of the kind of Jeremy Clarkson nonsense that flares up from time to time. There was this kind of sense in which having a bad opinions were being punished more than bad behaviour. Or if where bad behaviour was being punished, as we've seen in recent years via Me Too or whatever, maybe it was being punished slightly selectively.
Yeah.
And I think in a context in which even our kind of popular media feels so moralistic and charged and virtue signaling, all these different things together, it raises the stakes for people like this. So you're less likely to forgive it as, that's just people with their foibles, which are going to be particularly more pronounced amongst celebrities and people who make a lot of money.
I will say, though, also, I mean, I think a lot of that is generated by the tabloid press. And I do think the mainstream press, I mean, the print, the legacy media, whatever you want to call them, they have been struggling for a number of years now. And one thing that they do in order to try and remain relevant and viable is they emulate social media. So this, I mean, in an ideal world, this would be the kind of thing that would just be gossiped about on chat boards. But the press go with it because they can see that it's actually creating, and as you say, week 6, I mean, it certainly doesn't justify that. It's obviously inflamed because they feel that they are telling you a story about the media ecosystem, which somehow elevates its importance itself, you know.
And the media loves nothing more than to talk about the media.
Exactly. And it was interesting, for instance, when the first Me Too kind of shockwaves went through Hollywood, the first thing Hollywood did was make a movie about sexual harassment in print media, and news media, Fox News and all that kind of, you know, they all like to kind of push it out and go, oh, it's not us, it's the, you know. There's a lot of hypocrisy working through the system there, you know, and people are not going to turn away from it because it is salacious, it's slightly titillating, isn't it, you know.
And Tom, I mean, is there a bit of a free speech angle here? Because I don't know about you, but when I've been invited on TV, you end up talking about this on pay-per-view or something because it's never off the news. Yeah. we all knew what had happened.
Well,
we'd all heard the story, and we had to do this sort of weird dance. I was sat next to Eamon Holmes, of all people, who was ranting about Phillip Schofield.
He
had a viral rant against him, but he still wasn't allowed to say he's had an affair with this.
Kim something who was from the she'd been in the Big Brother house, and she had made a couple of very barbed comments on the sofa to him that people have gone, that's a bit odd.
It was fascinating because you kind of had this conversation that was going on two levels at the same time. You had what you were able to say on television, what you would read in the tabloids. I think that was part of the reason that it went on for so long.
Yeah,
because it was also the story had to be sustained to the point where either the injunctions fell away or someone came forward, or there was something that the story could be kind of corroborated with and get around the various NDAs which were obviously being deployed in this particular situation. And the other thing is we don't even really know, because it's the nature of these restrictions that you don't really find out about them, what injunctions such as they are exist, under what circumstances, and also what you've got to be very careful of saying, given the sorts of laws we have in this country about what you can say about public figures and not be sued into the ground for. So it's another example of that, definitely. In a kind of
I think it was quite interesting. Somebody said on Twitter, it's not my world, I'm really, just repeating second information, but this sounds plausible to me, that it wasn't so much the NDAs signed to ITV or even the super injunctions, it's the power of the agents. Agents are very, very powerful people in this game, and if they say to you, if you don't protect our client, then you'll never get X, Y, and Z. I mean, my own agency is a large one in the comedy world, and I know that they haven't in the past, they exercise a bit of muscle. If you want him, you have to have him, and vice versa. And it's quite interesting. Holly Willoughby herself, I think, left her agents and then sued her agents. There's been a big power play going on there. I believe Schofield being sacked by his agency was probably the decisive moment, even more than him being let go from This Morning.
Well, I'd heard that Holly Willoughby, got more flack for the Q incident than Phillip Schofield, and a lot of people said that was to do with the row over the agency.